Good day. This is a message for Tony Hall and the BBC, the British establishment and the Conservative Party. I'm a lifelong environmentalist and human rights activist and a parent, and as such I am at times devastatingly worried about what is happening to our world. Politically, I'm very concerned, and in terms of man's impact on the environment, I'm a believer in science. I don't believe science knows everything, but when the vast majority of the world's scientists are deeply alarmed and saying that we are heading for absolute planet-wide catastrophe, the end of life as we know it on planet Earth, then it's worth worrying about. My analysis, and the analysis of many, many others, is that man-made climate change poses a far, far greater threat, an ever-present threat, than terrorism, although climate change is a driver of terrorism. Now, this is a very difficult video to make because there are so many issues and they're also interpenetrated. Free trade capitalism, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and their relationship with the United Kingdom, the USA, and there are so many issues, the arms trade, the petrochemical industry, that I have to be very careful and try and keep this down to the specific issue that I want to talk about, and that is the indoctrination of children. As a parent, I'm particularly concerned. If it was just my life, that would be nothing in comparison. Before I had children, I was desperately worried for other people's children. I've got an imagination, and I can imagine what it's like to be in famine or war, and I wouldn't want that for anyone's children. And now I've got my own children. It's very, very painful to see their beautiful, innocent, wonderful, they're the most beautiful children in the world to me. I'm sure that other people feel that about their children. Their beauty is indescribable. During the bankers' crisis, I remember my beautiful daughter smiling, and I remember thinking, every smile of my daughter is worth more than a banker's bonus. And that's how I feel about life. Unlike a lot of people, I have put love, family, and nature above chasing down money. I can appreciate the fact that a Ferrari or a BMW is a sexy, powerful car that gives people kudos and so on and so forth, but it's a big fingers up, really, isn't it, to planet Earth and to my children. So I wouldn't be dumb enough to buy one or to seek the sort of money that could buy one, because if I had that sort of money, I'd just give it to the World Land Trust so that I could save the planet, so my children could have air to breathe and water to drink, and a world where they can get up and listen to different birds and bees and think, well, one day maybe I could go and try and find a tiger somewhere and have a look at it, not shoot it like the British aristocracy did for so long. In the good old days of the Raj. I know a lot about British history, incidentally. Anyway, let's get to the point. Tony Hall, I am holding you on really a criminal charge, and the BBC and the British government, of indoctrinating our children into the worst elements of culture which are killing our planet and eradicating any reasonable hope of a future. How can I dare say that? Be so audacious? It's not audacious at all. Do you think that I am stupid enough to not be aware that you know what you're doing when you make programmes? For goodness sake. A producer and a director will be well aware of a single move of a single facial muscle to convey a message that the audience is supposed to get. Literally, you'll have a scene going on and someone will... That is an important cue. looking down, it's one little glance of an eye is known, the effect of it is known and calculated. So the provision of a whole series of programs about a certain subject, come on. So the BBC, the British government, the British elite knows that there's catastrophic man-made climate change, that security analysts are warning us of far greater danger than terrorism, or that terrorism will increase through it, and that our present policies are creating it, and we could change them, all of them. And yet, there's almost no representation. And in fact, I think it can be easily proven that there's a conscious policy to keep people in the dark. How can I say that? How can I back that up? I need to be able to back up my words. Well, I can. Al Gore presented a film, An Inconvenient Truth. The British government could have shown it to all of our school children, but they chose not to. That would have prepared children for what is happening, what they're going to have to face. Now, there were a lot of criticisms of that film. Turns out that they were largely totally incorrect. It was a very, very accurate film, a very, very timely film. Then COP21 arrived. COP21 was arguably the most important meeting that's ever occurred between humans on planet Earth. How can I say that? Because it was completely unprecedented. Nearly every single nation on Earth coming to discuss one single issue, not just a random UN meeting that happens all the time. No, every nation on Earth, except for 2 or 3 nations which had extreme problems and couldn't get there, such as Yemen, I think. Was it Yemen and Venezuela? Anyway, virtually every single nation represented to decide on the fate of humanity. Would we give our children a future? Would we eradicate nature and our species and the viability of organic life on planet Earth as we know it? Or would we do something about it? An unprecedented meeting, the most important meeting there's ever been. And how much coverage was there on the BBC? Almost zero. Almost nothing leading up to it. Almost nothing during it. And afterwards, we heard nothing from the Conservative government. I tried. I did an internet search. What is the Conservative government taking there? I could not find it. Even though I looked. After people not looking, they weren't told. All that happened, virtually the coverage was basically, there's a meeting happening. At the end of it, we were told the British Conservative government has gone to the COP21 and says, the meeting went well, we got what we wanted, there's nothing to worry about. Well, there were some agreements made, but they weren't put into law. So I was deeply worried. A, they didn't go far enough. B, they weren't put into law. C, we didn't hear about them. And the British public weren't invited into that debate, the most important debate of our time. Far, far, far more important than terrorism. They know how to manipulate us. You know how to manipulate us, BBC. 9/11 happened in the States. For several years, we heard nothing from morning, noon, not nothing, but every single news program contained masses of Islamic terrorist threat, axis of evil, morning, noon and night. Whereas the IRA killed a member of the royal family. They put a mortar bomb down Downing Street. They bombed the Conservative Party conference of the hotel where they were staying at, killing Conservatives. There have been numerous successful bombings all around Britain. We hardly heard of it in comparison, but they were a far more effective terrorist organisation operating directly within our boundaries. So the public can be manipulated. I must try to keep this down to, as I said, unfortunately, that all the issues are interpenetrated. So Zionism and the pro-Israeli stance, so the illegal settlements. So it's aiding and abetting illegal activity to aid and abet Israel in their illegal settlement program, by the way. But let's get back to the environment, nature and children. So Al Gore wanted to help the children. And I wrote to Al Gore saying, please do more with the children. Try and get children making videos because the adults are set in their ways. Try telling a Ferrari Top Gear watcher, or just a watcher of Top Gear, to try not to lust after fancy cars now. I mean, sure, they're sexy and they're beautiful. Just look at the magazine, have a toy car. Cars are to get from A to B. The rest is fancy stuff that we don't need. especially now we know that the devastation of nature is really happening. So it's wrong. This is my quintessential key point in this video, Tony Hall. It's criminal to, while not educating children about the dangers and the reality of climate change, this is what should be on every single news programme for adults and children, because if you don't act like something is important, if you don't give it much weight, it's like that King Arthur Merlin thing. You know, there's that film where they say they won't talk to the person of magic and they'll just disappear if you just ignore them. Yeah. You see, if you don't give it weight, if you put more weight on Meghan Markle's dress, then people are going to think that the climate isn't important. You need to give it weight, as you did with terrorism. The most important subject needs the most weight and the most discussion and the most in-depth. You don't just need to have Jacob Rees-Mogg on there saying, I don't worry about it, the planet's getting greener, uncontested. It's utterly unexcusable. So you're not educated. There's no programmes like on children's TV series about, you know, making your how to green your parents. And yet you've got Hot Rod Your Parents' Car, damn it. You've got another programme by sexy female, am I allowed to say that? Female rally driver, just going around all different machines. Yeah, this machine's great. Yes, machine's great. We shouldn't be, you know, we need to get from A to B, but you don't have to glamorise it. This is talking about life and death of all of humanity, the eradication of the species. I realise that entertainment is important and fun, but don't hoodwink our children and deny them a right to life, because it is. Let's look at another little thing related. You pay Will Self, who's supposedly one of the most intelligent, thoughtful people. He's got his own little section, hasn't he? You know, point of view or whatever. Give him a whole programme to give his opinion. He discussed this thing of, you know, not knowing how to look in his children's eyes when they sort of ask him about climate change and so on and so forth. Well, he rambled for a whole programme and he didn't know what to do about it or what to say. And he just said, basically at the end of it, I don't know what to say, you know, unless we do something, the results will be terrible. Well, funnily enough, I wrote to him with a lot of solutions, because there are a lot of solutions. Some of them may be better than others, but at least I've thought about it deeply on multiple levels and spent a lot of time writing to him. He didn't even bother writing back to say, thanks Adam, I'm really thoughtful. I don't agree with all of it, but it's something to go on. Thanks for being so concerned. Couldn't even bother to write back. Even though he wasted the British public's time, the BBC wasted the British public's time, just having someone rambling without any solution, when there are plenty of solutions. And our children have the right to know them. They have the right to contest the culture which is killing our planet, which is mindless petrol hedonism. You know, I get it. When I was a kid, I used to buy car magazines and do Ferrari, great, I'd love a Ferrari. And then, as soon as I was a youth, I realised that the planet, the forests were being cut down, and we won't be able to have air to breathe, and we were all going to die. And I'd better just have a little toy Ferrari and look at them in a museum and go, well, that was amazing, but we should be not that stupid anymore. Yeah. Because life's what's important. The smile of your child is worth more than money. Yeah? And the ability for them to have a breath of air. Because every single drop of water, every single breath of air, every single one. Thank you for that breath. We have countless during our lifetime. Every single breath, every single drop of water, every single morsel of food, every single cell in your body, in your ancestors' body, in those who've yet to come. Every single bit comes from nature for free. We've got an unpayable debt to nature, but we need to try to pay it back. So we need to challenge the earth-raping, extractive, exploitative model of free trade capitalism, which is implicitly imbalanced and a raping model, to one of, call it ecoism instead of socialism, one that recognises the cost of our lives to nature and pays back. Carbon tax on everything if you're going to have money still. And no greenwashing. Knowledge about what's happening. You can't say things are getting greener without examining it. So yes, an oil palm plantation is green. But cutting down the pristine rainforest released so much carbon and eradicated so many species that it's not fair to present it as, and that planted trees, I planted 3 million trees. Yeah, you planted oil palm after eradicating the forests and all the species within it. So it's a green desert. People need to know that. And they need to know that in their products, that virtually all their food products, margarines and ready-made meals and biscuits, is oil palm. And they need to know that when they say sustainable, that's not what anyone who cares about sustainability would call sustainable. It's a lie. And these are the sort of thing that children should know. But hot rodding your parent's car is not going to show them that. It's going to literally leave them, when they leave school now, they could be the activists. They could be the people challenging the status quo. They could be the people challenging the Conservative government, saying that they're really environmental, leading the way. They are not. They're lying. They're not meeting their schedules. They're doing cause after cause, which is terrible. The BBC has a bias towards, and I can prove it, towards space exploration. It's a crime against the Earth at present. Nuclear power is a crime against the Earth. Okay? Towards mindless car culture, towards free trade capitalism, towards Zionism. There's a lot of things that need to be challenged, but here I'm focusing on this thing, that it is wrong and it's criminal of Tony Hall to perpetrate hot rod your parents' car and whatever the rally drivers program is. I've seen adverts for it. I don't want to watch it. It hurts my heart to watch it, to watch this indoctrination of our kids. Hurts me because I freaking well care about life, man. I love my kids. My son's smile is so innocent, it's so beautiful, and I want him to have a right to life. Nothing is stopping him other than the utter greed of people like the Rothschilds, the Oppenheimers, the De Beers, the Tony Halls, the Margaret Thatchers, the Theresa Mays, the Jacob Rees-Moggs, the Boris Johnsons, the Benjamin Netanyahus, the Prince Saud, or whatever I've forgotten the name, Saudi Arabian monkeys. Sorry, I love monkeys. Sorry, Jamal Khashoggi was cut to pieces. Don't go on and on about Venezuela. Biggest oil reserves in the world. How come it's so poor? Because the Venezuelan government decided to keep those resources for its people and not just give them to the shareholders. We need to look at everything. Dependence on petrochemicals is not good because it allows Saudi Arabia to influence all of the world's economy by fluctuating the price of oil and the demand for oil. It enables them to be one of the biggest military expenditures in the world, even though it's a terrible dictatorship that's behind Wahhabism, which is the extreme, nastier form of Islam. Not all Islam is like that, but by backing them, we're backing that. Most of the terrorists did come out of Saudi Arabia or were trained there, not from Iran, as Israel would like us to believe. So people need to be educated. I'm going to end this now. It's wrong of the BBC to be indoctrinating our children. We need to demand that Hot Rod Your Parents' Car and the one programme with the rally driver is taken down, and programmes that educate our children about habitat loss, species loss, degradation of the environment, about those things that are causing the imbalance on the earth, which includes challenging free trade capitalism. Footballers paid £400,000 a week, a child reviewing video games and being able to get 17 million pounds or dollars, I forget which one it is, in a year. That might seem nice to people who can't think. What are they going to spend it on? They're going to spend that. Is that kid going to spend that money on restoring the forest or just buying himself luxury goods? It's wrong to be able to get that rich. It's wrong to be able to give yourself that luxury lifestyle, that business class. That can't be allowed anymore. Private jets can't be allowed anymore. Not even business class. No. Let alone tourism to outer space. Richard Branson, you're a liar. Or it's disingenuous. If you say, Richard Branson says that going to outer space will be less negative towards the environment, less carbon than going business class across the Atlantic. Well, if that's true, business class is totally unacceptable. Indeed it is. But so is space tourism, because you haven't added in the carbon for all of the experiments and all of the work and all the metal and all the fuel and everything that went into creating your craft. So it's time you started paying your carbon tax, Richard Branson. You have to give away every single penny you've got, mate. Or the vast amount of it.